It's time to head south with the Fantha from Down Under.
The Fantha.
Let it up, fuzzball.
From Down Under.
Do. Or do not. There is no try.
G'day, mate. How you going?
Here is your host, Adam O'Brien.
And welcome to another episode of the Fantha from Down Under. I'm Adam O'Brien, the one with the mullet. That's right, coming to you live, direct from the one, the only, the Gold Coast in Australia, and from the studios of Quinlan's Cantina. We're here to chat some Star Wars tonight, and of course, we're going to have part two of our chat with Din, the singer and of course guitarist of one of the great bands from, of course, Canada, who is really, I think, one of the greats when it comes to mixing a little bit of the hero's journey with music and some really rockin' tunes. Let's just get that down pat too. It is fantastic. But at the front of this show, we're going to be chatting a little bit of Star Wars, and of course, with the Triple Force Friday out, I'm going to give you a taste of what it was like out here in Australia. So sit back and relax and enjoy, because I tell you what, we've got a good 30 minutes here of Star Wars coming to you from Down Under. So, how can you catch this show? Well, you can catch it, of course, from fanthatracks.com, where you'll find all your Star Wars news in a single file. And, of course, you'll catch over there all the other great shows that are on the Fantha Tracks Radio Network. You can follow this show, the Fantha from Down Under, from there, but also you can catch it on iTunes. You can subscribe there. You can also find it on Google Play. You can find it on Spotify, and of course Stitcher Radio, and anywhere where you can find good podcasts. You can catch me, Adam O'Brien, the host of the show, at The Little Mullet on both Twitter and Instagram, and of course you can catch me on Facebook as well, where my other show is, of course, The Lethal Mullet podcast, where I cover everything action cinema on the Phantom Podcast Network. Of course, if you grew up in the 1980s, you're going to love that show, because that's what we cover, all that fantastic demolition derby style action films and all that sort of stuff all over there. But tonight we're going to chat some Star Wars, of course, here on the Fantha Tracks Radio Network. Stay tuned. So it's Triple Force Friday, the last fortnight here in Australia and of course across the globe. Of course, Fantha Tracks has had you covered on all the UK happenings and of course US happenings, and of course in all areas of the globe, as Fantha Tracks Radio here in Australia is also doing. Of course, we've been out Fantha from Down Under checking out the different spots, whether it be Target, Kmart, Mr. Toys, or any of those great places where you're going to find, of course, merchandise. Well, it was few and far between, but what we did find out there was the very, very basic figures out there. So we found, of course, the small lines of the Galaxy Adventures version of the Rise of Skywalker. They're out there. So there are those out there. But, of course, we also saw the 6-inch Black Series line, and if you're lucky enough, you got the Mandalorian. Now, of course, this is coming in multiple different packaging as well, these carbonized packages that I suppose in some ways a way for you to collect a number of different figures. Now, it also comes down to whether you, as a Star Wars fan, as a collector, and somebody who appreciates packaging, is that part of what you collect? Personally, I've got to break things out of the packaging. That's just what I do. Because if I'm going to pay a hard-earned dollar on something, I want to actually check it out, model it, put it where how it's meant to be, have it out there with the other 6-inch figures, which are pretty much all I collect these days. But the Mandalorian just happens to be a fantastic figure. It really is. Of course, it's really got me psyched for this show coming in November. It's only around the corner, guys. And at just the time when this here mullet-filled fella is going to be taking a holiday. And so I can't wait to check out the actual show. But again, of course, we got a little bit of that. We got the new Rey, we got the new Kylo Ren, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, we should say. It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? As he is in the film. But also, what we get in this one is the new look, so the fractured helmet, which I just think is fan-bloody-tastic. It says a lot about the fella. I mean, we don't know exactly what's going to happen in this movie yet. Of course, there's lots of speculation going on, but one of the symbolisms of the film itself, or what the helmet that obviously got crushed in The Last Jedi, having it come back together with the red there, starting to see some of the break in this, this character, Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, the light versus the dark, which has always been there since Force Awakens. I mean, it was always there, and if anything, is pushed even further in the last film. So it's interesting to see sort of that dichotomy of what they're doing there. But the figure looks fantastic, and of course the others do as well. Now, there has been some figures released, but also some Lego released, and we got to see, of course, the Y-Wing, which looks bloody fantastic. I kind of hope that we get to see that also with the Hasbro collection of stuff as well. But what's great is, too, we've had the vintage line really kick off again, and I couldn't be happier. I think it's fantastic what they've got out there. Now, in Australia, the skiff is out there, so we're talking about the small skiff that goes with the Return of the Jedi, of course, Jabba's sail barge kit, which is just massive. But if you get the sail barge out here, the vintage series, that is going for about $80 Australian, and can be found at Zing pop culture stores. Of course, they're pretty much the store to go to when it comes to the high-end market of Star Wars. But if you're looking for the other stuff, of course, Zing are also carrying Poe's new X-Wing, which is just fantastic. Now, that's retailing in the UK and US for around about, the US dollar, it's around about $100. But out here in Australia, it is just on $200. So it's a bit out of the price range. And I've got to say, Hasbro, even for you guys, it's a little bit steep price-wise out here in Australia. But it does look fan-bloody-tastic. I think it looks almost as good as the X-Wings, especially paint scheme-wise, that we saw in Rogue One. We got to see a couple of around where Baze was sort of hosing down stormtroopers. And, I think the Partisan X-Wing was a really interesting sort of design when it came to the paint scheme. Of course, it's just the X-Wing by design. But anyway, Poe's one looks fantastic. And, of course, we've got the A-Wing in Lego. We've got that plus the speeder from the Speeder Chase on Pisana, which is there as well. And some brand new, of course, Lego minifigs. Now, what's really interesting too is that we've had the Star Wars universe book brought back out too, and that is doing the rounds out here in Australia early, so you can get that out here in Australia. And, of course, our pals over there at Fantha Tracks, Mark Newbold, goes, Adam, can you have a look at page number 535, please? And, of course, we did that for him. And that's a really bad imitation of Mark there, by the way. Sorry, Mr. Newbold. But it is true. Mark has been referenced by Adam Bray in the book. So if you go and get the book, and I think it's page 335, this is also on the site. We've got a bit of a snapshot of what it looks like. So go and check it out. Again, Adam Bray, dear friend of the show, has put that in there. And goodness knows what, there's probably a lot more Easter eggs in there for you, Star Wars fans, to check out. And do check it out. It is a fantastic book. Again, that hasn't had a reissue, I think, since 2015. So there's a lot of new info in there. A little bit of The Rise of Skywalker. You do get to see a Y-Wing in there. And from what we gather, it's Zori Bliss that uses that in the film. But they've also got some of the great stuff in there that we're seeing now too with, of course, Solo there. There's a lot of update and people like, of course, we have Darth Maul has a new entry in the side there too. And a lot just for the characters in and around there. And, of course, Last Jedi and everything leading up to the journey, to the rise of Skywalker. Now, we were going to have the rise of Quinlan Vos here, folks. That's what we really, really want to know is, when is the Vos going to be the boss again? Again, in canon, it says even in the book that the Vos survived, or did he not? We don't know. It's left into the air. What happened on Kashyyyk after Order 66? Anyway, getting back to the collecting, so there's a fair bit out there, but the thing that has really exploded is, of course, the Lego that's out there. Quite pricey, but you might just find a deal. Now, the usual peg warmers are out there too, from the stuff that hasn't been sold from previous iterations. There's even some Rogue One merch I saw out there. But happy to say that Martin Keeler will not find a Constable Zuvio figure on Australian stands any longer. They're all gone. So go out there if you can find them. You never know. Anyway, stay tuned, folks. We've got up next, of course, Din on part 2 of his chat here with us. And we're going to be chatting a little bit more about the Star Wars influence on his music, but also going to really get into, what Star Wars has done for him for his life. And, of course, where you can find the albums and, of course, what is so amazing about it too. All here on the Fantha from Down Under.
Yeah, so many North American towns and townships and cities are named after places in Europe.
Like York.
Oh, you got Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
The famous Birmingham in the southern states, and then I actually went through Birmingham, England, and played there with Carl. And where J.R.R. Tolkien was from, Birmingham, England.
Nice.
There's a tower that apparently people say, big industrial tower that Tolkien hated, that was the influence behind Mordor. Location, yeah, I actually remember Bono saying that early days, like, you gotta have a location. And that's part of the hero's journey thing that I was going for with Desert Planet. Like, if the listeners walking around, listening to their MP3 or Spotify in their headphones, like, turn their location into a desert planet around them. And then that was the desert planet thing was really part of that hero's moment where you're called to go somewhere, but then you just really don't want to. In this case specifically because you just feel like you don't have the courage to. So I think it's kind of like a song about someone. So in my mind, that related to Rey asking Finn, to go along, or but Desert Planet. The crazy thing about that was it was written before. It was written before The Last Jedi. And one specific image, you walk alone on a barren coast into the cave of who you are. I was like, wow, that really, like, the cave that Rey goes into is actually a cave on a coastline. So that was a specific that tied into Last Jedi that I didn't plan, which was pretty cool.
It's excellent. Now, folks, also one of the big tracks is track 3, No Man's Land, which has a very interesting story to it as well. Tell the folks about it, then.
Okay, No Man's Land was a theme probably on every album I've ever done. I've looked at an issue, the one issue that's closest to my heart, which is Indigenous rights here in Canada. People think of Canada as a peaceful nation, but we did kill off 90% of our Indigenous people since we first came here. So that's a heavy topic, and I do probably one song per album, and No Man's Land is that song on this album. And but the challenge was to write something, and this is another lesson from Star Wars and George Lucas, I think, which is you can pick the heavy topics, but write them in an artistic, maybe pretty, hopefully beautiful way where it feels like something you want to listen to, not something that's didactic or hitting you over the head with a message. And I just, for whatever reason, as someone who's really critical of everything I do and tries to make things perfect, but very rarely gets there, this is one of those perfect songs. I think I'm happy with every word, every melody, every beat, guitar, bass, the song structure, the tone, the vocal performance too. My friend who's an activist who I was saying to you just a little about before we started recording, James Loney. He was one of the first people asked before Abu Ghraib was sort of popular during the war in Iraq. He was asked to go there as an activist with a group of people to help families, mostly women and kids, who their fathers were taken away to Abu Ghraib prison. He was just asked to go there to help, to be someone who could work between the two parties, the jail and the families, to try to establish the whereabouts of their family members. But while he was there, he's abducted with three other activists, and one of them was shot. They were eventually found by the army and released, and he came back to Canada, and he's my neighbor, and he's an author. He wrote a great book called Captivity about his 118 days in captivity there, and I think it's a perfect book. And I actually met him when I worked at a paper and doing design, and he was a writer, and he would come in and bring his story. So he's my activist mentor and a writer, so I asked him if he could help me just fix up the words and make sure I got the message in each word of the song right, and he did. And it wouldn't have been the perfect song to me without his help.
It's brilliant. And again, a great message of that song too, folks. Great story to it. Now, also, in the...
Oh, can I just say, go to... search on YouTube F-105 No Man's Land and watch the video, because I spent 3 months working every day to hand draw and animate and edit that video. So I've never worked so hard on a video or a specific song in my life, and I think it's worth the 4 minutes.
Definitely, go and check it out, folks. Obviously,
it is worth the 4 minutes. I don't think it is.
It is. There you go. Yeah, especially if you put that much effort into it. Obviously, on that album, you also get Mileage, October 1st. Now, I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Vilho and Elsa, is that right? It's
actually Viljo and Elsa. The Y is... the J is a Y sound in Finland. My dad's Finnish. It's one of the reasons why I don't use my last name in art or music, because no one ever pronounced it right, and I think Finnish is kind of a beautiful language, and I don't want to really hear anyone say my last name unless it's pronounced right, just because, like Tolkien, I like the sound of things, and just easier, too, for people just to say Din. Yeah.
Of course. No, obviously...
But Viljo and Elsa is a song I challenge. It's in the style of Bob Dylan's Isis, 3 chords telling a folk story. But Isis for Dylan was more mythological and grand, obviously. Isis being an Egyptian goddess, not the terrorist organization. But this was my first attempt to write a folk song on a smaller scale. So I told a hero's journey in a folk tale, almost linearly, about my parents' emigration from Finland to Canada. So that was a fun challenge.
Absolutely brilliant. You also get Let It Go, It's a New Day, and of course, Last Moment. Now, the biggest news is that you're about to hit the road and perform all these live in the local area of Toronto. Now, tell us a little about that.
Well, I think that's a paradox. I don't think hitting the road in Toronto is... I can really say that, because our house gig, we're playing like once a month. We have two house gigs, and the one we're playing, I literally walk there from my house. So, hitting the road with my feet. That's Friday. That's Friday, September 20th, and that'll be the F-105 album was released only digitally, because I found no one really buys CDs anymore. But over the past year, every once in a while, someone asks for a CD, so we finally got CDs printed, and we'll have them on the 20th. And we do these really epic, long, old school shows, where we're just paid to go to this bar and entertain the people there for 3 hours. So it's 3 sets, mostly originals, and my friends come out, and it's a really fun time. And as far as hitting the road, and anyone could order, if they want a CD, they can order that. Just inbox me through any of our sites. The next tour will happen. I've learned you only schedule a tour once you know for sure when the album's going to be done, because sometimes you can keep working on an album and then you don't want to tour while you're. So we have the plan that Mark, my mentor, producer, and sort of mini label owner, he has agreed as of last week that he's interested to do the next album, which I'm relieved about, because I made the last two albums, the last Souls album and F105, were such a push artistically to find something new in both instances that I kind of think pushed everyone really hard on the last albums, and I think it wore people out. It did wear people out. And that was like those two albums, like that's a 4 or 5 year period of wearing people out. So I'm just really relieved to know that I will be doing the next album. And there's a few songs that'll be for the Star Wars community on it. And I won't get on the road to do another tour until I know when that'll be done. But I'm definitely going to make that another world tour, because I just have to get back to Europe. I loved it so much.
Definitely.
And Greg, Darth Elvis, has offered to help me with booking shows in Scotland too, so I got to get out there. Another Fantha tracker. So thanks, Greg.
Fantastic. Now, before we wrap, we have to do the 5 essential questions of Star Wars. These can be any questions that pop up, and will only be knowledge of what's inside the theatrical film. So,
are we going to wrap it?
We're about to wrap it with some questions.
Like actual rap? Like?
Oh, no. Finish up the episode, that is.
I can rap for you if you want.
Oh, you can you can rap the answers. How's that sound? There you go. So, your first question is, who falls into the Rancor pit with Luke Skywalker?
Ula. My was trying to think of a rap. I couldn't. I'm no Eminem. Ula.
Not quite, but when he gets... No, it's not. It's actually a Gamorrean guard.
Oh, you're talking...
Wrong answer. Okay, so we're going for 4 out of 5, folks.
Wait, how does Ula get down there?
She gets down there, but it's earlier, so it's a separate scene.
Oh, my God, what's wrong? No, I'm unworthy to be a Star Wars fan. Okay, next question.
Okay, next one. Here we go. This is from Redemption. Does Princess Leia say, one thing's for sure, we're all going to be a lot thinner in the trash compactor?
No. One thing's for sure, we're all going to be a lot thinner.
Han Solo. Very good. All right, folks. We got one. We won one. Here we go. All right, next one. Are we ready?
What an incredible smell you've discovered.
Who does Luke Skywalker
Look, Your Worship, I had everything under control until you let us down here.
I'm the Baron Administrator of this facility. Who does Luke Skywalker sense is on the Imperial Star Destroyer that requests Shuttle Tydirium's code clearance in Return of the Jedi?
Oh, Vader, of course.
Perfect, yeah. That's it. 2 out of 5, folks. Here we go. A prequel question. How does Obi-Wan evade the weapon Jango Fett launches at the asteroid belt surrounding Geonosis?
All 4, release the spare canisters.
Perfect.
On my mark.
Absolutely perfect. Okay, folks, we've got 3 out of 5 so far, and we're going for the kill. Here we go. What does Yoda say about the prophecy of the Chosen One before he leaves for Kashyyyk? A, that it may not have been misread. B, true, it is not.
A prophecy misread could have been.
Oh, perfect. There you go. We got ourselves 3 out of 5 there, folks. Well done, mate. Oh, no, sorry, 4 out of 5.
No.
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. I mean, the first one was actually an obvious... I don't know why I just went to... That's weird. Yeah, of course, the Gamorrean guard falls and then runs to the door to try to get out and gets eaten.
That's right. And you know, folks, I've always thought that Luke kind of takes his father's trait at the start of Return of the Jedi, where he literally force chokes 2 Gamorrean guards.
Yeah, that's... George Lucas, I think there was some indie filmmaker, and I can't remember his name, recently said that in a talk that he loved the prequels. And, he's one of these celebrated indie filmmakers, right? That people are like, why would you love the prequels? You make these little brilliant films. And he's like, no, George Lucas is a good director. Like, think about The Phantom Menace, or the scene with Maul and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon at the end. There's no talking, but you know exactly what the story is. And there's a lot of story going on as they move closer to Maul through those gates. He said it's all visual. You're never confused about what's happening, and you know it all clearly exactly what he's trying to say. And there's poetry there that he's saying too with those scenes, and that's true. I think of every second of every George Lucas Star Wars movie, and most of what happens in the new Disney movies. But no, one thing you cannot say about Lucas is that as a craftsperson, he didn't actually perfectly make every Star Wars movie on that level where you always know exactly what is happening. It always moves right. That is something that I can't say about Marvel movies. I get lost a lot. They're just throwing so much at you. And in Return of the Jedi, the scene that you're talking about, it's all visual. There's hardly any talking. Luke is, as he's entering the palace, he is entering it. You think, is he the Emperor? Is he Darth Vader? That black hooded silhouette. And then he immediately, when the guards come up to him, instead of talking to them, he just force chokes them, pushes them out of the way. And without any words being said, or even as a kid even realizing it was the first Star Wars movie I remember seeing in the theater, I knew that Luke was powerful. I knew subconsciously that it was dark. But it wasn't until I watched the scene more and more as I grew older that I was like, oh, it's very clear. George Lucas is telling us that he's been studying dark side powers and he's on a Darth Vader path. Without saying a word,
It's all there. It's in the actual thing itself, It's
no emo screaming, no dialogue to say, I'm going to the dark side. It's all just... But that whole scene, right up in his arrogance. He's arrogant in not a good way. He's half calm, cool Jedi and confident, but he's also got an unhealthy dose of dark side arrogance going on. He's just the way he's looking at Jabba, and and then he pulls the gun towards him, and he should not be using a gun. He's a Jedi. But then when he's captured by Jabba after the Rancor, killing the Rancor, he's like, that's the last mistake you're ever going to make. It's not a Jedi thing to say. Oh, that was dialogue. But yeah.
But it's very
visual
true,
storytelling in Star Wars is a force to be reckoned
with. It is brilliant. Now, folks, you can catch a lot of this great music and stuff like that on the social sites that F105 have, and of course that Din has, but also on the website itself.
Is at F105 Music. So everything, Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, Instagram, and then the website is f105music.com. So just always typing F105 Music.
Awesome. And where can they, listeners, actually find yourself as well?
So I personally run all the social network sites, so they can hit me up personally on any of those. But the place that I do most of my personal posting is my Facebook page, Din, and I use Sky Singer as a sort of avatar last name. I like to just be Din in my music and art. That's how I sign my paintings, but Facebook forces a last name, so I chose something Star Wars-y. Din Sky Singer.
Awesome. So go and check it out, folks. Obviously, check out Desert Planet Discs, which is going to have another interview with Din, of course, talking about more on the musical side of things. And, of course, get out there and check out the shows if you're in Toronto. Din, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. Always great to chat not only music, but Star Wars and the hero's journey with you.
Thanks, brother, or mate, as you say. It's been a great time. I always love talking to you. Thank you for letting me ramble on in depth about the artistic side of things, because that's the most exciting thing to me. Is getting really, really into the nooks and crannies of the creative process.
Awesome. So, folks, go and check it out. And we'll be back with more Fantha from Down Under after this short break.
It's time to head south with the Fantha from Down Under.
The Fantha.
Light it up, Fuzzball.
From Down Under.
Do. Or do not. There is no try.
G'day, mate. How you going?
Here is your host, Adam O'Brien.